Hey people, you found the Hillbilly Voodoo channel. We're back working on our old fart drift cart here. For those of you that are just finding us, we're building a drift cart out of ground obtainium. And those of you that don't know what ground obtainium is, it's all the stuff that I have laying on the ground around here. The plan is to not spend any money at all on this cart. I'm just using the junk that we have laying around. The last episode, we had this cart down on the floor and we determined that the frame was not going to be quite beefy enough for my hefty manly body size. So I'm going to have to put a brace from here down to the front here, because this is just thin trampoline pipe and I can see it bending in rather rapid succession of me bouncing around and ricocheting off of things. So I'm going to go outside to the piles and find myself some more of that trampoline pipe, cut some chunks and weld them in there, and we'll see if that's beefy enough to hold me and this machine in one piece. Stick around for the adventure. We'll see how much we get done on it this week, and maybe we can, well, actually fire it up and go for a ride. I found me some more of that trampoline pipe, and I just notched the ends of it. Cut two pieces. I'm going to weld them in there like that. And hopefully it will give us a little bit more triangulation, a little bit more bracing. And if not, well, then I guess we're going to have to just keep welding more pipe in there. Yeah, well, it's kind of how we do things around here. It's not a whole lot of engineering, just trial and error. Wheels don't rub, so that's a good thing. And the way this pipe is now situated, hopefully it will hold my feet in there and keep them from getting sucked into the tires. But yeah, that's yet to be seen. So I'll weld this stuff in there, and then we're going to work on creating a brake handle for it. Yeah, that's probably the next thing that we should do, is make sure that the brakes work before we get it fired up and get it rolling. So we got our pipes welded in there now. It seems to make the frame a hell of a lot stiffer, so should have solved that problem. Now we're going to work on our brake. Now in the previous video, you know that I built a brake shoe for back here that, I don't know if you can see it in there or not. It's just on a pivot. Pushes on the inside of our drum. Stops the drum pulley thing that we built. And that's going to be our brake. We need a lever that will go from probably about here up, that we can grab and pull on and make our brake lock up and do brake type things. So we already have the brake shoe and the pivot. So what I'm thinking is another pivot point down here, coming off the frame, and then a bar going up. And we'll have another bar coming in closer to the frame going up that goes back to our brake shoe. Now, why am I doing this in two pieces? Well, because I'm a super wide dude and that frame is not very wide. And I kind of want enough room so that the arm, or brake arm thing, will be out here a little ways, but it's got to kind of be in line to push on that, right? So I'm gonna have to build some type of pivot where there's a point that comes up this way, pushes back, and then a point that comes up, and we can put a lever on and do our gripping and ripping here. So let's see what we can come up with here and see if it's gonna work. I dug around in our piles of ground obtainium, and this is what I've come up with for a brake. Looks like a brake donut. Well, not quite yet, but it will in a minute. I'm gonna take this chunk of rebar, cut a piece off of it, machine it down for our pivot bolt point, whatever the hell you want to call it. This will be the piece that slides over the top. That's an old jack handle. Yeah, jack handle off of a hydraulic jack. Cut a piece off of that. So that will slide over that. We will chop some pieces out of this random piece of steel. A couple chunks out of there. Those will be our little levers. And then we'll whittle a handle out of this aluminum. You see what I'm getting at here? Well, if not, you just hold on and we'll make a break out of this yet. Anybody looking for round stock? If you have a lathe and you want to turn stuff, old rebar is usually free or next to nothing. There's all kinds of pieces and scraps and stuff laying all over the place. If you look, you'll usually find something somewhere. And it actually turns fairly nice once you get the bumpy grips off of it. And the funny thing is, it usually has enough carbon content to it that you can actually harden it, which is kind of weird. You wouldn't think that something that's so soft and can be bended into malleable blah 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 would be something that would be hardenable, but it is. Heat it up to yield point and quench it in oil, and it comes out fairly hard. So there's just another little hint for you about materials that you can use for different projects that wouldn't really be something that you would think about. So let's get on building ourselves a break out of this pile of stuff here. Piece is built here now. This is the pivot that we built out of the rebar. So that was the piece of rebar. This is the piece of jack handle. Goes over like that. Threaded it. So that we weld right there. Now this piece here was out of that square chunk. And we'll weld that there. This bar will have a linkage going back to our brake shoe. That will activate the brake shoe. And we got this piece here that we whittled out of that piece of aluminum with another piece of steel from that square chunk. We're going to weld that out there like that. So when we pull on that bar, it moves the other little bar. And yeah, we'll put all this together here, tack it in place, and then I'll show you so that you can actually understand what I'm saying without me flailing around with a bunch of pieces in my hand. Now this is what it looks like all assembled. This is what I've been yammering on about here for the last couple minutes. Got our handle for our brake. Pull on it, pushes on that lever there. We're on our pivot. The rod goes back, pushes on our brake shoe, which pushes on the inside of the drum. Stops the drum. Move the drum like that, push on brake, stops the drum. Look at that, eh? Pretty simple. Hopefully it works. Yeah. Gonna clean up some of the welds a little bit, maybe make it look pretty. Definitely have to stop and get some lock nuts, maybe some Nylox or something. Hold it all together. Either that or I'll just take a chisel and mash the threads on the end of them so the nuts don't back off, and we'll be good to go. So I think I'm going to tackle cleaning that carb there and put a fuel tank on it. So let's get on that. Well, we got our carburetor all rebuilt here. It was super messed up inside, and there was some broken pieces that I kind of had to put back together. So hopefully this thing is going to run. Let's give her a whirl here. things are going to do what they're going to do. I think maybe I'll build a real gas tank, because this is kind of just hanging here. Yeah, I think that's what I'll do next, is build a gas tank. I found me an old dead fire extinguisher here. I think it's a little bit long, maybe for, I don't know, it might be okay. Length of the fuel tank. I don't know, that's an awful big fuel tank for something just for playing around here. But I think I'll take the top off. Maybe shorten it up a little bit. Yeah, maybe half, 3/4 that size. Back in there a little ways. Yeah, it's metal, so I can weld to it and do its thing. And it's way past its expiry. I think the last date on it was 80 something, so probably can't really be recharged anyway. So let's see what we can build out of it for a fuel tank. So I took our fire extinguisher and I shortened it down. It's a little bit bigger than this plastic tank now. The reason I didn't use this plastic tank is because it's got a crack right along here and it leaks like a sieve, so I don't really want gas all over me while I'm riding around. But anyways, we cut this thing down, welded the end back on it, and I found an old boat tank. You can see it out there on the ground. The bottom was completely rusted out of it, but the top was still good. So I cut the filler neck and cap thingy out of it, and I'm going to weld it in there. And that'll give us our fuel tank. I'll drill a hole in the bottom and put a bung with a petcock type thing, so I can shut the fuel off and it doesn't flood the carburetor out when it's not running. That'll make a good fuel tank. Well, while I'm sitting here looking at this machine and trying to decide what I was going to do next, I thought back to the fact that the engine runs now, and when I started it up, these wheels were whipping around at probably better of 40 miles an hour, which is probably going to be way too fast at idle to even get this thing to go forward with me on it with my weight. So I'm going to have to build another pulley that's smaller for the front, and will reduce my gear. And while I'm sitting here looking at this pulley, I'm thinking, how the hell am I going to start this thing when it is always in gear? How can I pull start it while not sitting on it and have to depress the clutch to put it into neutral? And in order to depress the clutch, I have to be sitting on it, and I can't pull start it while I'm sitting on it. So yeah, 2 steps forward, maybe 10 steps back here. I'm going to have to figure out some way to lock that clutch down and possibly lock the brake on, which would probably seem like a safe thing to do, because if that pulley is warm and sticky, then this thing is going to bugger off even if the clutch is depressed. So yeah, it's another problem to think about. If you guys are liking this content so far, give me a thumbs up. Been trying to get this thing done so I can go for a ride on it, but yeah, life's issues have been jumping up on me. Yesterday, my goats decided that they wanted to eat a whole bunch of duck food, and goats and duck food don't really mix, so we kind of had a bit of a shitstorm, literally. And yeah, you know, when your buddy's laying in the stall right beside you and you're having a shitstorm, well, buddy's getting all covered in your shitstorm. So goats really don't like water, and they don't like being bathed. So gonna have to go out there and deal with that right now. So maybe you guys could do something for me and hit that subscribe button so that you can keep following along on this build. And I'll go and deal with my chores. And yeah, until next time, use what you got to make what you want. And I'll see you guys later.